Hello, everyone. I guess we're on segment 5, I think. I don't know. Check it out. But in the next we're on a new segment of our series of intrusive, transient OCD, HOCD, negative thoughts. And we are continuing our discussion. Now, this one, we're going to talk about, some of you ask or say, when you're facing with this topic, you wonder, but I felt something. It felt so real. Well, of course, thought is beginning of emotion. So when you think of certain thing, then you feel a certain thing. Your thought affects emotion. You can't say just because I felt something when such image or thought popped up to my head about imagining some same gender, a body of the same gender, or certain thought about same gender or interest or image showed up, and then you say, I felt something. Well, any thought can access an emotion. Now, sometimes that thought is accessing the emotion that is pertaining that particular thought directly, and sometimes it goes to what it knows as much as possibly it can go closest to the emotion available in the memory files about such action, which is not a direct action, but it's the closest emotion it can find about that certain thought. For example, if a thought of a man shows up, or a image of a body of a man shows up, and you say, I felt something. Well, because thought goes and tries to access what emotion can fit this. Can't find any, because you're not a homosexual. But human being body is considered sexual regardless of what your gender is, because human being reacts sexual to things that are known to represent sexual. In other words, we know ourselves through our sexuality in major part of knowing ourselves, and therefore we consider our body, when we think of it, sexual, and other men have the same parts as we have, and we think about our parts, wherever it is, sexual. So therefore we have only can attribute same title or same way of thinking about same body part of another man, because that's how we attribute that body part to ourselves. We apply a sexual meaning to that body part of ourselves, whether it's hand, legs, ears, eyes, looks, good looking, not, or our genital, or how we touch. All of that is considered sexual in ourselves. That's how we think of these body parts in our own body. And another man has the same body parts. So our recognition of that would be based on how we recognize our own body parts. So we consider that, also react to that as known as a sexual part. That's natural. In fact, one of the researchers, Dr. I forgot his name. He also, that was the one that coined the phrase that, I mean, not coined the phrase, but discovered or in his reports, in his studies, that we react sexually to sexual things. And because we consider ourselves sexual and our body part sexual, then we give the same attribute or same description, thought of another man's body or body part, the same as we think and we're conditioned to think about ourselves, our own. But when it comes to somebody else, then we, oh, is that homosexuality? No, that is how we recognize things. Things in life are of different things, and some things are just only known as sexual because we have it ourselves. So we consider that sexual and we see that same way on other people. And so when you have a thought, that thought goes and finds the closest emotional file that it has in the memory. And because you haven't had any, you're heterosexual, you never had any such direct memory, but because it is considered as a sexual part, it goes and finds the closest emotion to sexual classification that it can find. And that is the only thing that you know is feelings that you have sexually with a woman. But then you consider that association through the memory files as, oh, I felt sexual about this man. No, you didn't. That was a sexual part. You reacted to sexually, and the closest that is what you have experienced, and now you think with women, and you think that this is now a separate, which is an illusion, is a distraction, is false. If you want to understand that thought generates emotion, and emotion has been in human beings, part of human beings, way before thought came to the picture. Animals have emotions, but they have no thinking as the way we do, no thought or transient thought or intrusive thoughts, but they have, they are able to feel, and sensories work, and emotions are there. Let's do an exercise. If you simply put your hands like this, and put your left thumb on your right thumb, and the two index fingers are open like that, as you can see. Now I want you to keep these two fingers where they are without pulling apart or anything, but just leave them where they are. Now I want you to think about the tip of the index fingers and think, without pushing them together or pulling them apart, just leave them where they are. Think that they want to join each other. They want to go closer to each other. Think about the tip of the fingertips. Tip of the fingertips. Just think they want to join. Don't push them together. Just think. Think that they want to join together. And without any effort, just by thought, you can see that when you think that the two tips want to get close to each other, they eventually will. As you can see, there's a big difference between when I started and now. And you can try it with yourself, so you don't have to believe me if there's any doubt there. So you can see that just by thinking, these will move. Because this is the answer to some of the questions that comes to me that, but when I imagine that, when an image of a body of a man popped up in my head, and I had nothing to do with it, which most of you forget that all these thoughts are not your thoughts, they're involuntarily independent, they just show up, independent system. And then you wonder, because, okay, they popped up, but why did I feel something? Because thought can make things move, just like you saw. Thought can change emotions too, and cause emotions. For example, let's say you're having intimate time with your girlfriend, with your woman. And right in the middle, if you remember the Austin Power movie, and he didn't want to get excited of some kind, and he started saying name of a British Prime Minister lady, and then in a cold winter, something of that nature, which now you can make that up if you have seen that movie. But let's say if you think of a not so a pleasant image while you're having sex with your beautiful girlfriend, and think of it as, let's say, in a cold winter time, and a hairy legs of her, suddenly of somebody else when you're having sex with your woman. But think about another woman who's not so pleasant looking, and it's in cold winter time, and it's a hairy leg, and suddenly the whole excitement and movement of your apparatus changes. So what happened? The imagery, the thought, creating an image, changed your emotion to the point that you lost your arousal. That's what the intention of that movie was. I think that's what it was trying to show. But that is true. You can try it with yourself. It depends on what you think. It can affect your level of excitement in your that kind of environment. It's interesting to bring this up to your attention that probably many of you, it has happened that you were walking in the street, and then in front of you see this beautiful woman, nice, I don't know, blonde hair, brown hair, and beautiful figure, and you say, wow, I maybe go and kind of get to know her or something, or just say, oh wow, what a beautiful woman, and then you're just about to pass her by. She's got a mustache. Why did? Well, because you didn't know, so you perceived it as all you know, which is a woman, and then you reacted to that notion, and then therefore that's how you saw. But you didn't know it's a man, but you liked her. So is that now supposed to mean you're homosexual? No, that is how you react to something that you think, in the way that you thought it is. So you can move in any direction if you think it is that. So when you perhaps see a good looks, which would then translate to maybe your own good look or compared to your good look, and then your look is sexual to you, therefore you can think of that look sexual, and then thought runs with it somewhere else, and then you get bamboozled to think, oh, what does that mean? That means I had a sexual interest. No, you were thinking about it differently before the facts came to you, that you were focused on this, because before that you were focused on the concept of good looks and the sex and so on. But now that you realize where and what this good look belongs to, then suddenly you separate the two. So these things are natural way of the movements and reactions that we make, and it's part of being a human being. And for example, sometimes you might be saying that some of you write and say, but some of you write me and say, how can I like another guy because I was, I don't know, buying some food or buying a ticket, or this person, this clerk was so pleasant and I liked him, but then I said, well, how can I like another dude? It's not that you liked another dude sexually, is the fact that you are focused on the energy of another human being, because we are all made out of energy. And when the energy is positive and safe, we respond to it as an environment of familiarity. And especially when we are, as boys, been always conditioned to be the best and know ourselves through our sexuality and how popular we are with the women, with the girls, and so we've constantly be comparing ourselves to make sure that we are the best, because that's what's supposed to be how we identify ourselves, to be the best sexual specimen that the girls like. So we're constantly, in order to make sure of that, we're comparing to ourselves to other boys or other men all through our lives. And then when somehow we see that maybe another guy is got better chance with the girls because maybe he looks fitter, or he's got bigger muscles, or more fit, or good looking, or somewhat, and then we feel inferior to that. When we feel inferior, and because we're constantly comparing ourselves with the others, then we will be feeling inferior a lot more. And also depends on how the schooling environment was, and what kind of bullies we encountered and so on. And this inferiority feeling has had some kind of a imprint in our psyche, and therefore it can be triggered every time, especially if we're constantly comparing ourselves to the others, and then we find that maybe the other one has a better chance with the girls, and therefore we feel inferior. And then when we see someone who's pleasant and nice, and when we encounter in some wherever it is, a outing or business or shopping, and then that man's energy is polite, kind, and smiling, there's no malice or deviousness, negativity in that energy, then we are now focused on the energy, not the person's gender or who the person's gender is, just on that energy. And then you feel good, attracted to this energy. And then you say, because then you see it's a man, then you say, how could I be attracted? You're not attracted to the man. You're attracted to the energy and that whole experience of exchange of energy, which is what humanity is all about. And it's okay to like another person because you're focusing on that energy. And that is part of being a normal human being. So don't rush out and conclude, oh, I liked another guy. No. It's an energy, it's the entity, it's the existence of, and the interaction with that other human being, not the gender of it, if that is what you are concerned about. So you can see how mind can make changes in the emotion and movement. So when you say that, but I felt something, some of you, when you write me, say, I felt something, so what does that feeling mean? Well, because thought can create that feeling, and thought can. So if you focus on something, you can actually, let's put it this way, if you're looking at a smooth metal statue of, let's say, naked body of a bunch of men on a statue in the street in different parts, I don't know, New York, different countries, you can see these things. And if you don't know it's a man, if you haven't gotten to see it, just it's part of a body, and it's a smooth, you might actually say, oh, you know. But then as soon as you know it's a man, it just shuts down. You change. So these emotional files, these experiences are recorded in the memory, and when you come across, the sensories come to the picture and they access the experiences that is filed in the memory, and they react based on the memory. So in other words, you perceive that as sexual, and then in the memory you have that file and the emotion and sensories available, and they react to it. You didn't actually want it to have sex with the statue, the metal statue, did you now? But the idea that it was smooth, and the idea that it had the shape of a woman, that is what you perceived, it reminded you of, and you reacted to what was stored in your memory as what you know about sex. Now, if something else causes certain resemblance, or it's something that is known to the mind as sexual or sexual part, whatever it may be, and it comes to your mind, the mind can focus on that as a sexual, then it goes to sexual files. And even though that is not your interest at all, you could have a movement and you say, oh, What was that movement? It wasn't a movement toward that man or that image. It was a movement to the idea of sex, which you have its file in your memory. And that subtle or little movement or feelings is because of that was in your memory, not because of that is created for that image or that interaction. So you need to understand how these are all connected, so you won't be confused that this was because of that, directed that, and so forth, so forth. So let's see what else I wanted to discuss that with you. So these are what you need to be aware to understand the role of thought in creating emotion, role of thought. And some of you say, but I had an anxiety when the image of another man came to my mind, or I thought of it. Well, that anxiety is an intrusive anxiety, because it is not something that you know of yourself. It's not something that you're interested, but it is now attacked on you in the form of thought or image, and you are simply anxious in the way of an intrusive thought has caused your fight and flight system to become active, and that's the anxiety that you feel. You wonder, like, you're not a worm. You can react. You react to things. It's a danger. It's a fear. It's an alert. It's against who you are. You're supposed to protect yourself, and that jumps out, which is your fight and flight, to protect yourself from image, ideas, thought that is not of your liking or your choosing, but it's there, so you react to it. And the anxiety of it is anxiety of, why is it there? And then you try to find out, oh, is there any other reason? No, that's an intrusive reaction. Anxiety, it's an intrusive anxiety, not the anxiety that you would feel when you're talking to a girl that you really admire her looks, and you're talking on the phone trying to get a date off her, and she says yes, and you're just excited, and by the time you're going out to dinner with her, you can't wait till you hold her hand, and you're excited to kiss her. That's a different anxiety. But because that's all you know and you experience, and that's in your memory file, when you feel anxiety about this kind of a image or to you inappropriate thoughts, then you think that's the same anxiety. It's an anxiety that you might feel whatever you feel, but that's a different anxiety. But that's all you know of anxiety, so you think, oh, that is the same as that. No, it's not. It's not the same as that, because you can't wait till you kiss that girl or hold her hand. But in here, it's not happening that way. Now, the intrusive thoughts and negative thoughts, when such images come to your picture, may dare you, because you say, I'm not afraid of anything, and brings all kind of thoughts that you actually have nothing to do with it, but you have this tendency of imagining everything because you're very imaginative and strong in imagination, and you dare something that is dangerous just to show that I'm not afraid. So you imagine certain things. It's like you're at the top of a cliff and you don't want to jump, but the idea of jumping comes along, and you kind of say, hey, I can jump, I'm not afraid of it. That's the same kind of feeling that you have here when such images of another same gender shows up, and you mistakenly think that that's inclination, that's interest. No, it's your weird mind that is actually trying to dare it and is responding to the danger, which is saying, I'm not afraid of it, I'm going to go head to head with it. But that is mistook by you thinking that means that you actually have an intention or interest of a sexual interest, which is just a reaction to the environment and to the fight and flight response, and to the idea that is you're trying to process only by the things that is available to you in the memory, which is not of this sort, of the other sorts, and you're just trying to the brain is trying to find a way to express itself through what is known to it, not to what this particular experience is or might be, because you've never had that experience, so it's trying to find something else and it replaces it, and then you think, oh, that was a response to this, because then therefore I might be homosexual. No. So at this point, I think we can finish our segment here, and then in the next segment we want to talk about why intrusive thoughts, transient thoughts, pop-up thoughts, thoughts in general actually come to be of all kinds and happen to my head, which I didn't instigate them, don't want them. Why do they show up? How do they get in there? And hopefully that will be something that we can all ponder on. I'll talk to you soon.